Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
We made extraordinary efforts to give Americans every opportunity to depart the country, in many cases talking and sometimes walking them into the airport. Of those who self-identified as Americans in Afghanistan who are considering leaving the country, we've thus far received confirmation that about 6,000 have been evacuated or otherwise departed. This number will likely continue to grow as our outreach and arrivals continue. We believe there are still a small number of Americans, under 200 and likely closer to 100, who remain in Afghanistan and want to leave. We're trying to determine exactly how many.
How do we not know how many still? How do we not know that number? How is that not providable to everybody? By the way, Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in. Happy to be here. Chad is back next week. Let's go back. Let's flash back to Biden sitting down with George Stephanopoulos, and let's hear what he was going to what he said, what he believed to be likely if any Americans were left, right? If there's still Americans that want to leave, are we going to leave?
Americans should understand that troops might have to be there beyond August 31st.
No, Americans should understand that we're going to try to get it done before August 31st.
But if we don't, the troops will stay.
If we don't, we'll determine at the time who's left.
And
that is the most uncomfortable pause, by the way, just to reflect back to that old audio, that will determine who's left. And then George is like, yeah, you can't be done talking. Can you, Mr. President? You can't be done.
And if there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
We're going to stay till we get them all out. That was the thought process just a small amount of time ago. Much like the thought process on a lot of this stuff is one way, then all of a sudden it changes, and it makes very little sense. I do want to shift gears again to two Marine dads who popped up on the Sean Hannity show. I thought that this was tremendously powerful as far as interviews go, and they said a lot of things. They said things about their kids and how wonderful, how they're both heroes, and of course they are, and how this is what they wanted to do with their lives, is defend their country. But you can tell in these fathers' voices the amount of anger that they have for Biden or for this administration or for the decision-making, because a lot of us know, and it's been reported, that this didn't have to happen, that there was information and things available to this administration months ago to prevent where we got to with everything that is the problem that existed in Afghanistan and the end of the war in Afghanistan yesterday. All of that was preventable, even so much so that we had information telling us and even left some things open that we shouldn't have left open that allowed for the bombing itself. So there were failures all the way up till right before the attack. And so these dads, even though they're on a television program and they're trying to remember their sons and the bravery that their sons had, they can't help but think about the failure by the administration and the anger. And here is a little bit from each of them.
Well, initially I wasn't going to meet with him, but then I felt I owed it to my son to at least have some words with him about how I felt. And it didn't go well. He talked a bit more about his own son than he did my son, and that didn't sit well with me.
That is the first of the two fathers. His name is Mark Schmitz. He is the father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, who died in the bombing. We'll move on to the other father, Darren Hoover, who will talk about Marine Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover, but also about his experience with Biden and his family's decision not to even talk to the president because they knew, and as just demonstrated by the other father, that wasn't going to go well.
We said absolutely not. We didn't want to deal with him. We didn't want him anywhere near us. We as a family decided that was the way it was going to be. In reference to the checking of his watch, that didn't happen just once. That happened on every single one that came out of that airplane. It happened on every single one of them. They would release the salute, and he'd look down at his watch on every last one, all 13.
How could that have happened? I don't comprehend any. How could the president be so worried about what time it was when he was there doing that? I've seen the video of the check of the watch once to hear this parent say that it happened to every single a person that was removed from the plane, every single body, it makes no sense. That is incomprehensible as far as behavior goes. These are the kind of things that if the past president had done it, media would be lit on fire. You would hear it from all corners, every aspect of media, and some would defend, of course, the president, but a vast majority of media would be attack, attack, attack. Instead, most of these stories are almost nothing. They get covered in some places, and a lot of places just ignore them. Checking the watch every single time someone is removed from oh my God.
He looked down at his watch. And as a father, you know, seeing that and the disrespect and hearing from his former leaders, one of his master sergeants said that this was avoidable, that they left them over there. They had them over there and let them down.
I don't know how you react if you're a dad and you're at an event like that and you're around people like the President of the United States and you have other military leaders that come up to you and tell you your son didn't have to die. I'm trying to even comprehend how you would handle that moment. And I want to thank both of those fathers, like Hannity did, for the bravery of their children and their willingness to go on television so soon and talk about it. And it's just so terribly, terribly disappointing and upsetting to think about this, and to also think about the way in which it occurred and the fact that it's over. And there's several American citizens still left. And I don't have to turn to any one source of media to hear about how bad it is that there's still Americans there and we're not doing it. I can go anyone. I can spin the wheel of media sources, land on any source, and play you audio that demonstrates that there is someone on that television station saying how bad this is. Let's go CNN. CNN, Chris Cuomo, had on a woman named Sarah. She is a U.S. citizen, someone he's had on multiple times throughout this process. She did not get out. Part of the reason Sarah didn't get out is that she has bonded with other people that she's staying with. She says they're women and children, some of them disabled children, and she wanted to try to get them out too. They're families that were depending on her, families that would do things like kiss her feet while they would interact with her in order to try to get her to help them. And so she said that she was emotionally tied to those individuals. So I want to represent that and say that she's not just an American citizen alone that was trying to get out and couldn't, although there are stories of people in that situation who couldn't get to the airport because of the Taliban. But this is a woman who was trying to do right by some of the people that she got to know very well there, and that maybe that was the roadblock. I'm not even totally sure if she actually ever pinpoints that as something that she was specifically told was the roadblock. But here she is, still in Afghanistan with a U.S. passport, wanting to leave.
I just found out that they left, and I was just silent for a little while. And I just walk around the rooms, and I saw the young kids are sleeping, and they have no clue what happened this morning, that the last flight is gone and we're left behind. It's heartbreaking to see that with all this, what's going on, no one heard us, that we are in danger and we need to be safe. It's just heartbreaking. I don't know. I just don't even know what to say to you.
That is how she does an interview on television after finding out that she and the people that she had cared about and wanted to try to help have all been left behind, that she's been left with them, and that now, according to, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, or according to any of the people talking about this right now, they're going to do everything they can. There's going to be attempts made through other channels, and the Taliban is to be trusted. That's what we're told again and again, that we've asked for permission. They've given us permission. They've said publicly that don't worry, they will do what's right. That is actual quotes from our own leadership now, saying that we essentially not only can, but have to trust the enemy of the last 20 years to help us still get U.S. citizens, 100 or so, some amount in the hundreds, out of Afghanistan. The failure that is this operation is shocking, even as it occurs, even day in and day out, as you feel and see and read these moments. And it makes it really hard, to be honest, to even come on and talk about these kind of things, because it's just incomprehensible that our country, that the military capabilities that we have gotten to this point, because I believe our president had a deadline we had to hit no matter what the data said, no matter what the information on the ground was. This president said we're out by that day, and we live with the results. And that is the worst way to lead I could ever fathom. All right, I have to take a break. A lot more coming up. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. You'd think that a news organization like CNN could at least cover something awful like Hurricane Ida that they would be able to handle that coverage. There wouldn't be any hiccups or mistakes that happen in that world. And then we have this audio of someone on the ground, a reporter on the ground talking to two neighbors. One neighbor had completely lost his house. The other neighbor had watched it occur. The one guy had texted with his neighbor and tried to tell him what was going on because he thought he wasn't in the house. The guy happened to be in the house. That's the story. Those are all the pieces of information you need to know. However, as soon as this reporter finds out that the first neighbor, the one that didn't lose his house, should not be the focus of the conversation at all, but he's only dating, he's not married to the person he lives with, well, that became part of the conversation.
Daniel was in his house right next door with his wife. Girlfriend. I'm sorry. Are you ready to propose?
Yeah, you really get it.
Man, got him there. See, we're trying to have a good time while we're here, too.
I can't. Okay, hold on. I think the phrase of the day yesterday is a reporter from CNN standing at devastation at Hurricane Ida saying, we're trying to have a good time while we're here, too.
Trying to have a good time while we're here, too.
I mean, I can't even. The interview went on to actually tell the story, as I said, about one neighbor watching his next-door neighbor's house collapse and worrying that he doesn't know about it, finding out he's inside. And then actually the guy who had a house collapse on him told his neighbor it wasn't safe and stay inside. So a feel-good story. They end it with more talks, more jokes about if this guy's going to propose.
And we're grateful you have a good friend next door, Daniel, who may propose to his girlfriend soon. Right? Putting him on the spot. But we're happy that this man is doing okay.
You can edit that part out.
Okay. Now, hold on. Not only does it get awkward with the moments of pause there, but then the dude who just lost his house actually leans in and makes a joke to help out his neighbor by saying you could edit this part out. That's the dude who just lost his home, who actually said that he had no insurance on it. So he's in a horrible, horrible personal situation, a moment in his life. And he's like, I got to help this other guy.
But we're happy that this man is doing okay.
You can edit that part out.
We can edit that part out. But we are live, gentlemen.
That's CNN for you. Award-winning coverage of everything all the time. All right, I want to move on to another story. This has very much entertained me, and I'm going to use a radio host, a different radio host. I don't know that that's smart. I'm going to do it. New York radio host Sal Licata is out there talking about the Mets and the booing scandal, and I think this is hilarious. I think every part of this is hilarious. If you're from certain places in our country and you happen to be a sports fan, you know that booing is a part of it. You know that if I happen to be a Yankee fan who was born in New Jersey, I don't know if that's why I get it. I always say it this way: a boo is a form of tough love. If you're a big fan of a team and you have a great player or any player really, and they're just not playing well and you boo them, that is not meant to be as mean as maybe it's coming off to some of the Mets. And even if it is, who cares? The real reality of it is you got to do better. And I'm telling you got to do better, and hopefully my boo gets you over that hump to do better. The Mets have gone a different road. Several of the players are doing a thumbs down kind of celebration when they do well, to point back to the fans and to mock them, which is utter stupidity in the world of sports. You don't ever go after the people paying to watch you play something. But here is Sal just losing his mind talking about this topic.
This has been a thought process from these losers all year long. The rat and the raccoon stuff. Yeah, blame everybody else except yourself. No, Francisco, your fans don't want to boo, Jerry. You know that. We want to go there and cheer for these guys. You're making $341 million. Can you get a freaking hit with a guy on? Can you do something? Oh, my defense, you can't talk about that. I want to see some offense. I mean, we want to see some hits here. Your offense is pathetic. And this guy Lindor, it's everybody else. It's not the Mets, no, it's everybody else. It's the fans' fault. It's the media's fault. They want to pick a fight with the fans. Meanwhile, they can't pick a fight with the Nationals. Go beat a Marlins team. Go beat the Braves or the Phillies or the Dodgers or the Giants. You losers. You're trying to take on the fans. This is Lindor. Look, Baez, I wouldn't even waste my breath. Take your league-leading strikeouts elsewhere, you clown.
That's my favorite. It's my favorite audio of the day. Way to go. I am so wonderfully entertained by the totality of this story. It's a bunch of Mets players who I don't think have been Mets for very long, for the most part. Lindor and Baez, certainly not. But anybody else that's leaning into that is a person that I don't think gets it at all as far as the reason why this occurs, the reason why fans actually care. I think booing actually shows you care even more, to be honest. I do personally think that if you're a fan who pays money to go see a team and knows how much the players are making, wants them to play better because you care that passionately about them, that you actually stand up and boo to their face. It's not like you go on Twitter and say that they're doing a bad job. You're like, oh, this guy should be traded. No, you go into the stadium and you yell at the guy in person, and it's making the players mad. This is the exact opposite effect, and it's hilarious as the story goes. And I love the you loser audio of all of it because it is true that anybody who cares about a team and it gets excited when a great player gets added to your team, if they play poorly and they're not worth the money you're spending on them, a true fan is mad about that. And an even more true person goes in person to tell that player all about it. This is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Just some continued quick conversation about everything going on as we end a 20-year war. I do want to play some audio from Clarissa Ward, one of the CNN reporters, someone who stayed on the ground for a while there. I thought it was tremendously valuable reporting that she provided. I know the organization she works for is one that some people hate and some people like. I get it because they do a lot of politically motivated things. Yet what she did was impressive. And she did react to the end of the war and the leaving of Americans behind quickly the other day.
Well, how crushing do you think this moment is for the, let's say, 250 Americans and so many others, thousands of Afghans who were still desperate to try to get out?
I think it's absolutely crushing. Of course, Wolf. I spoke earlier on in the day with a family of 4 from Houston, Texas. They told me they had been going to the airport for 2 weeks, trying desperately to get out. They all have American passports. They had gone to Afghanistan to visit the mother's family, and essentially the issue was they couldn't get past the Taliban. They were in touch with the U.S. military. The military was trying to facilitate their departure.
That's it. They couldn't get through. They could not break that line, and you hear Clarissa Ward, again, who did some excellent reporting while she was there, talk about Americans that want to leave, that tried to leave, that failed to leave, and it is heartbreaking to hear that they are left behind. All right, let's move on to other stories in the news. Ron DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, has defied a judge's ruling and has withheld salaries from members of school boards that mandate masks. This is the latest, according to Politico. The department is withholding monthly salaries from school board members in the counties, in a few of the other counties, a couple that I don't want to mention, which has defied a law signed by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis that ban the implementation of mask mandates to combat the spread of COVID-19 in schools. The average monthly salary for a school board member is about $3,900. That is all reported on by Politico. This is a fight that probably winds up in a whole lot of courtrooms, continued courtrooms, as of course already there's been one judge's ruling. And it's something that I think a lot of us feel passionate about one way or the other for all kinds of different reasons. But the truth is that if the governor wants to, enforce his policies and wants to do everything he can to try to maintain that control or what he believes to be the right side of the argument, I think it makes sense, even though it's immensely disappointing, according to spokespeople. And if I was on the school board, I would be very, very upset that I wasn't getting paid. But as you go through this part of the process, and inevitably, look, if you keep, losing lawsuits and whatnot, the people get paid at the end of the day. This is something that probably still ends a certain way. But I do think that DeSantis is trying as hard as he can to enforce what he believes to be fair policy, that implementing mask mandates is wrong and that decisions are more valuable for people. And I do see every move DeSantis makes, controversial or not, continue to just raise his stake or raise his level of awareness, the attention, all the different things that we are, considering. Florida is one of the places we talk about the most during the entirety of this part of the pandemic, and it's because of DeSantis. And you might hate him, you might agree with him, but it is effective, I guess I will say this, in getting more and more attention into that area and into that state, because I believe he's going to run for president. I believe that that's going to happen. I'm not saying that he doesn't believe in his policies. I'm just saying that he's doing an incredibly valuable job at going beyond those policies and actually gaining attention. I do want to play some other audio that I found terribly, terribly amusing. This is from a school board meeting. It's audio that cracked me up and probably cracked a lot of people up for a lot of reasons because, well, it's a Bart Simpson joke, and it's a Bart Simpson joke that that you see all the time. And a kid just pulled it on a school board, and I don't know if maybe this is more valuable than some of the things we see out of these school board meetings, some of the viral videos and the screaming and yelling. And I have thought about this too. A lot of people on these boards are actually volunteers, depending on where they are. And I would just quit these jobs. If it was me, if I was asked to sit there and get yelled at, no matter what side of the argument I'm on, I'd probably just be like, I'm done. If I was in Florida and they took away my salary, I'd be like, yeah, I quit. I don't want to do this anymore. But this kid played a prank, and it aired live.
We do appreciate you. Phil McCracken. Phil McCracken.
It's going to continue. I don't know why that's so funny to me. An actual school board member not realizing that Phil McCracken is not a guy that's going to get up and talk that day. He's not a person that's there. He's just a name that a kid decided to submit in because the kid thought it was funny and probably also thought nobody would actually read it. And then, boom, there you go. They go ahead and read it right there for you. Okay, a little bit more.
Soak.
So many of them are out there, and they just keep getting named and mentioned, and I think I'm having a good time. That's very, very... I can't believe that worked. To be honest, how do you not see any of that? How do you not read it and look at it and say, all right, this can't be real, and especially when people don't start stepping up. All right, let's move on again. Other news, there is a photo of Elizabeth Warren. She partied maskless with actual Native Americans at an Interior Secretary's wedding. This is nuts that we keep having moments like this, that we keep having stories that we can report on in the world of media that go after these politicians and these people who demonstrate that they do not care about the things that they say wherever they're saying them. They do not care. They don't care about what your take on it is or how you react to it. They just say something that they have no intent of following. Elizabeth Warren did that. There's photos of her holding, touching someone on the shoulder, smiling behind them. There's photos of her at the wedding, interacting with several people. Nobody's wearing a mask, and this just makes no sense. When I don't understand why we can't force politicians to follow every single one of the things that they say. It should be a thing. I mean, we talk about all the time the world of putting cameras on cops, why don't we put cameras on politicians? I would be so thrilled if they signed up for that, if they allowed us to just put the daily monitor on. I mean, you can take it off when you're in private somewhere, I guess, but for the most part, and I don't mean at a wedding. That's not private. That's public. You're out there in the world. I mean, when you're at home ready to go to bed or go into the restroom or something. But they should wear them. They should wear those cameras so we can see if they're following their own advice. And if they're not following their own advice, then we don't have to do it. That's how that should end. If they don't do it, we don't have to do it. And it should just be the rule of the land. And that should be how we handle it time and again. Australia to end the COVID zero policy, not a sustainable way to live. This is the latest update from a few of the politicians there. Australia is set to end their COVID zero policy after their prime minister determined that the country's approach is just impossible. The Delta variant provided a new challenge for that nation that the Washington Post once labeled a pandemic success story. Australia, the nation, responded to the variant by instituting what it called circuit breakers. Any detected cases would result in a lockdown to stop the spread at the beginning. They were locking down all the areas of their country very, very quickly. Once you get to 70% of your eligible population being vaccinated and 80%, something like that, the plan sets out that they move forward to other stages, other different things. Morris said this in his video address, because it's not at 70 or 80%. They don't really know when they'll be able to implement any kind of other policies, but this didn't work. So far, the vaccination campaign remains sluggish, especially in comparison to Europe and the United States. Only a little over 27% of that country is fully vaccinated, with just under half of the population with at least one shot. And again, this is a place that was called a COVID success story, a location that a lot of people, a country that a lot of people said was doing things right. The zero policy, though, didn't work, and it can't work. And I wonder if we'll get more data and see more information as we see some of the mask mandates and the things return in certain areas. If they're not as effective as we hope they are, and I'm not saying I question the science, I'm just saying if some of the data now with the Delta variant changes our understanding of those things. We've seen outbreaks in school that have mask requirements. We've seen outbreaks throughout the country that maybe still baffle scientists because there might be some changing information here. And so I wonder if, as DeSantis or anyone else fights some of these things, if we start to see new information like we have already been seeing in some worlds, and actually there's information even out there about vaccinated people versus unvaccinated people in hospital stays. And if you're of a certain age group, there's not really the benefit they thought there was. And a lot of these numbers are trending downward. And again, I'm not telling you how to live your life. I've been vaccinated. If you want to know, I provide that information every time I talk about this topic. At the same time, the information is ever evolving, and maybe we'll see more and more things come forward in the world of masks or anything else, much like in Australia, that continue to change our perspective on just what the right and wrong decisions are. All right, I got to take a break. More of the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in just a bit.
Welcome to Chad. No, not the country. The institution. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. Very much, of course, thrilled to have him back. But you're stuck with me for the next few days. China limits the children that can play video games in that country to 3 hours per week. You can now only play video games if you're a minor in China for 3 hours per week. You can only play video games between 8 and 9 p.m. on Fridays, weekends, and on public holidays starting September 1st. That is according to a notice from the National Press and Publication Administration. What? I read that a lot of times, and look, I'll say this. Like, if parents wanted to restrict the amount of video game play for kids, and I don't care what country you live in, that makes sense to me. Of course that makes sense to me because of how much of an addiction I think the youngest of our generations have, younger generations, to screens. All the time, every screen, the screen in your pocket, the screen everywhere. That's the kind of thing that just is a part of life and needs to be monitored and handled. But the government shouldn't do that. The government shouldn't get involved. And what are the penalties? How is this going to be handled? How are people going to get treated if you play video games in hours that you're not supposed to play them? And of course, to be super successful in those worlds. You don't just play the game. You eventually wind up streaming it, getting popular on social media. Of course, those things won't be allowed. The 3 hours per week for most weeks of the year is down from a previous restriction set in 2019 that allowed minors to play video games from an hour and a half per day and 3 hours on public holidays. So the 3 hours per week is actually worse than what had already existed. The new regulation affects some of China's largest technology companies, including game giants that exist there. If you're a company that works in gaming, can't test your product. You're like, I'm sorry, if you're a minor, you can't be in here. We can't. This game is for children, but the only people that can test it are adults beyond 3 hours a week. Stock prices actually were impacted there. There were companies that had their stocks kind of hit by this announcement, which again just makes no sense. And the future of e-gaming is something that a lot of people ask about. How many kids that get really obsessed with video games could go on to make a lot of money like any other athlete in any other sport? And it's more than you would imagine that can do that now, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger medium, of course. As I said, not just that, but the streaming of these things is something that's valuable. But I wonder how you take it. We talk all the time about how schools are now trying to parent kids. And that argument used to be, and I believe a lot of teachers that believed in certain aspects of that if parents weren't parenting them at home, that somebody needed to help out, somebody needed to step up. But now a lot of the ways in which these conversations exist, whether it's critical race theory, whatever it is that's occurring in school, it feels as though the educator is taking the place of the parent and trying to do something that would traditionally have been something that you or I growing up would have learned or talked to only our parents about. And now, at least in China, the government is just your mom or dad. That's just who they are, trying to be that. And I don't understand it. All right, I want to shift gears again. I'm entertained a lot by stupid words that Gen Z or millennials, and I am a millennial, by the way, this is self-hate, make up when it comes to the world of dating. These terms, I don't know why, they're so silly and stupid, but they entertain me a lot. One that I've recently discovered, and this is because of the New York Post, is a situationship. There is an article that says if you're stuck in a situationship, you need to flee that toxic man that won't commit. And as soon as I read the headline, I just couldn't help but laugh and smile at the idea of that. But apparently that's exactly what a situationship is. It resembles a relationship. It's vaguely similar, but there's no commitment of any kind. And according to the New York Post, it is a tactic. I love that it's described as a tactic, by the way, a tactic that men use to keep a steady, let's say, friend. There's other words that are used there. A steady adult friend, connected but not necessarily committed to you, and it leaves you with the ability to go after, say, other relationships. When confronted, a situationship-loving guy, oh, man, this is my favorite. Here's the advice. When confronted, a situation-loving guy will simply respond that he's just not ready to commit yet. This is not new. This is not something that all of a sudden was discovered and created in the world we're in now. There are several people that used to, at times in their life, younger times in their life, not be committed to a single relationship and not be ready to be committed. There's just a word for it now. There actually is also a person quoted in here, a 24-year-old, that says she knows a thing or two about situationships because she's been in one for years. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Audrey Peters for talking about her. She's been in one for years in college. She wanted a real relationship, but she just wound up getting stuck hanging out. And she said, ladies, let's set the bar, because if I get one more direct message asking what to respond to a Snapchat situationship, I'm going to explode. You're all queens, is what she said on social media. So be queens and don't situationship yourself, I guess is what we're trying to say here. I also saw this story. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson responded to an identical twin, quote unquote, not a real twin, but a guy, he's a cop, that looks exactly like The Rock. So much so that this cop in Alabama actually gets asked for photos all the time. I will say the cop seems to lean into it. He wears the big giant sunglasses that The Rock wears all the time. He's in shape similar to The Rock. But it's apparently so significant now that local news has interviewed this guy. He does a Rock impression, even though, as I said, he is a cop. He's not someone trying to make a living off of it. And The Rock responded on social media. He told his doppelgangers to stay safe, brother, and thank you for your service, one day we'll have a drink of the Rock's brand of alcohol, and I need to hear all your stories, the Rock stories, because I know you have them. That's what the star said to the guy that looks like him. I don't know why. I now want these two individuals to be in the same place for some reason. That's just something that makes sense to me. The lookalike is also apparently a Mets fan, so I don't know if he boos a lot. I don't know if he's someone who's been booing, but if the team saw that guy in the stand booing them, they probably would not give him the thumbs down. I'm just guessing. I'm not completely sure. And I don't know how much of a living you'd want to make off of looking like someone else, because it has to be awkward. The people who take the photo with this guy think he's a famous person he's not, and I don't know how quickly you tell people. I don't know if that's, and if you do appearances, if you go places, I know you can't lie, and I know that there's people that do the lookalike thing, but what are you really experiencing in those moments if you're actually going out and pretending to be a celebrity? I'm asking the question seriously, and I don't have the answer. For anyone that does this, maybe tell us on social media, because you're just pretending to not be you, and somehow you're making money off of that. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. We continue to make the rounds as far as the conversations going on after the end of the war in Afghanistan. This morning, there was a conversation with Good Morning America in which the National Secretary Advisor, Jake Sullivan, discussed trying to still save Americans that are left behind with George Stephanopoulos. What I think is so interesting about this is George gets to say, I was talking to the president, and he said we were going to do something different, and it doesn't seem we're doing that.
Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Jake, thanks for joining us this morning. 2 weeks ago, the president told me that American military would stay until all Americans were out. At least 100 Americans remain. What is the plan to get them out?
Well, first, as General McKenzie said yesterday, we continue our mission to get them out. It's just that it has shifted from a military mission to a diplomatic mission, and we have considerable leverage over the Taliban to ensure.
I have to stop it right there. It shifted. It's not a military operation anymore. It's diplomatic, and we have leverage. It's not as good as leverage of when we're in control of something. When our military is there, that's not, the leverage isn't the same. We have significant leverage, though. They'll be fine. Everybody will be fine. Don't worry about it.
That any remaining American citizen will be able to get out. And I would point out to you, George, that on August 14th, when this evacuation mission began, we believed that there were between 5,500 and 6,000 Americans in Afghanistan. We got out between 5,500 and 6,000 Americans from Afghanistan. We got out 97 or 98% of those on the ground. And the small number who remain, we contacted repeatedly over the course of 2 weeks to come to the airport, to come to a rally point.
There's a lot of people that said they couldn't get there. That's what seems so confusing to me. And, of course, you can flash back to the moment when Biden said, if there's even one American there, we're not leaving. We're going to stay.
Americans should understand that troops might have to be there beyond August 31st.
No, Americans should understand that we're going to try to get it done before August 31st.
But if we don't, the troops will stay.
If we don't, we'll determine at the time who's left.
And
if there are if there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
I'm the biggest fan of that. And that is probably one of the best questions I've heard asked by a journalist in a while. Just the word "and" after a statement. And what does that mean? What do we do after? This is tremendously upsetting. I know I'm laughing about the answers from the administration on this, but the truth is, the reality of it is heartbreaking. That there are people that are just left there. They're just left to and it's everybody. It's all sides of media, all sides of the conversation that are saying this is wrong. Here's CNN, Caitlin Collins, saying the bottom line is that they did not do what they said they'd do.
But the bottom line is there are still Americans in Afghanistan who want to leave. That will be a big question for the president tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a big question. She said that yesterday. That's a big question. The president doesn't like answering questions. as we know. This also from the Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby on people being left behind.
I don't think there's an exact figure, Willie. We believe we got the vast majority of American citizens out, something to the tune of 6,000 of them. And we think it's probably in the low hundreds that are still there.
It's weird that so many of the messaging systems right now are saying that this is okay, that this is the version of success or whatever they think it is, that, that we did it. We mostly did it. It's like horseshoes to this administration. You don't have to get right on the number. You don't have to save all of the American citizens from Afghanistan. Just get close enough, and then we're fine. And I only say it that way again. I am truly saddened by what's going on. It's just ridiculous the way that these conversations exist. I want to move on to other stories in the news. The View is going to try to replace Meghan McCain. They have a bunch of names on this list of people that are coming up to potentially co-host the show. And I don't know how many of these people would just guest host for the heck of it, or would truly, truly want the gig. Some of the more notable names on it are Condoleezza Rice, the Secretary of State under President George W. Bush. Condi she might do a great job, actually. Condoleezza Rice might really do quite well, I would imagine. Mia Love, the Republican Utah Congresswoman, might do fairly well, the former Republican Utah Congresswoman. I know that that's the game, though. You got to find the person who fills the hole on that show as one Republican who's willing to be attacked by everybody else on the show. That's essentially what Meghan McCain did. On a daily basis with differing levels of anger, you would say the answer that's different than what everybody else in the show thinks, and then you'd get yelled at by everybody on the show for it. And there are some voices, some names here, as I was talking to my producer Phil about this, that probably can handle that better than others, that can rise above or navigate around this screaming and yelling that is Joy Behar, and the things she's going to say about how you can't possibly be a Republican anymore, that's just wrong. I mean, obviously a great place to start an argument. So we'll see how everybody does in that world. I don't watch that show often, personally. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just telling the truth. But the viral clips of it are things that we play all over radio and media because it winds up being a pretty interesting example, a pretty probably exaggerated, I hope, example of how people are talking in their own daily lives. I also saw this story, a wacky guy, which is what he's being described as on social media in Mississippi, flipped out at MSNBC's coverage of the hurricane, coverage of Hurricane Ida, and he needed to talk about it, and we have a little bit of that audio.
The rain has stopped. The wind is still going there. I think we even have a random person going around. I'm going to turn this way because, we deal with some people every once in a while. But they did get some reports of some down power lines, of some trees that have fallen, or at least limbs that have fallen. So they're going to go ahead and do that survey to make sure that they're okay. Craig, I'm going to toss it back to you because we have a person who needs a little help right now.
Yeah. Hey.
So the guy is just screaming, report accurately, and we are bleeping some of it.
Hey. We're going to check in with Shaq Brewster just to make sure all is well. There's a lot of crazy out there. A lot of crazy.
I am not advocating for a dude that walks up to a reporter on the street and just starts screaming profanities and other things about how you need to report accurately. I'm not advocating for that. However, I guess I'm a little entertained. No one was injured. No one got hurt. The person just needed to make sure that his sentiment was passed on, that reporting needs to be accurate. And all right, you know what? Fine. Let's listen to it again.
The rain has stopped. The wind is still going there. I think we even have a random person going around. I'm going to turn this way because, we deal with some people every once in a while. But they did get some reports of some down power lines, of some trees that have fallen, or at least limbs that have fallen. So they're going to go ahead and do that survey to make sure that they're okay. Craig, I'm going to toss it back to you because we have a person who...
Because I can't be on the TV right now with the things that are happening behind me, with the words that are being screamed. I can't be on the television anymore, so I think that I need to throw it back to you. And then I do like his reaction in the studio, Craig, saying that there's just some people
right now.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey.
We're going to check in with Shaq Brewster just to make sure all is well. There's a lot of crazy out there. A lot of crazy.
Come on, man. I feel like you need Biden in there to just yell a little, come on, man, to tell him to calm down. Like, come on, hey. This is not what we need this to be. We got to find a way to pump the brakes on this to make it a little bit better. I don't know. MSNBC does definitely a lot of news that is probably not incredibly accurate. I don't know if they're reporting on Hurricane Ida actually falls into that bucket, but this gentleman was quite upset by that. And I guess that's just a part of the life you live when you're a news reporter for a specific organization. One other story, and then I got to take a break. Many Americans haven't had a day to relax in more than 3 months. A new survey found that a third of Americans are so busy that they haven't relaxed for even 24 hours. 65% of people say they'd like to spend more time on self-care. That is in response, of course, to a lot of things going on, whether it's trying to recover as a business from the pandemic or whether it's just trying to hold a job, if that's something that's still a struggle for people, of course, in certain areas. And obviously a lot of other people not taking the very many jobs that are available. But the fact that it's been 3 months and a lot of people can't refresh for a single day has got to be taking its toll on us. To be honest, what we do in this medium or any other, talking about the news, you wake up, and even though I know that some things are changing a little bit in Afghanistan or not, I guess, changing that much, but the stories are evolving, it feels like Groundhog Day. It feels like a lot of things are the same. Joe Biden is screwing something up. That's a news story I can expect most mornings when I wake up. The pandemic is somehow not over, according to a lot of people. That's a news story I can expect every day when I wake up. It just feels like we're in Groundhog Day. And I was actually talking to my producer, Phil, a second ago about how I can't believe that it's the end of August already, that we're already on the doorstep of September, because it feels like so many things are the same so often. And I hope I'm not alone in that, but I imagine that's why so many can't relax, according to this study, is that it's not even the daily requirements of you. It's just the fact that you feel as though a lot of us can't seem to see that light at the end of the tunnel that is getting back to truly, truly normal life, the way we've all expected to get back to it time and again. I don't know. Maybe that's a downer of a segment. Maybe that's a downer of a thought. So I'll take a break, and I'll be back in a second. This is The Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Texas-based attorney Sidney Powell sat down for an interview with the Australian broadcast company's Sarah Ferguson. It's a two-part series focused on the claims of election fraud. There is a moment within the conversation that's already gone viral on social media. I do want to play it for you. I do want to say about the election fraud thing, a topic that as soon as it comes up, no matter where you talk about it, on the radio or just in human life, people have strong opinions. Those strong opinions are probably never going to come together. I personally don't think that whatever amount of fraud occurred in this election would have changed the outcome of the election. It appears as though most law places agree with that too. Most, courtrooms seem to think the same. I do, of course, think there probably was some fraud, as there kind of always is in elections. And so I'm trying to play as middle of the road as I can as far as that conversation goes. But I think the question is funny nonetheless, and the way in which it's answered is funny nonetheless. So whatever side of the conversation you're on, put that in the back of your brain for just a second and listen to this.
What you're describing is a massive countrywide fraud involving the FBI, the DOJ, the Department of Homeland Security, the organizations who certify elections, and on, all the way up to the Attorney General, and thousands of local election officials. Are you saying that thousands of Americans participated in a fraud?
I am saying that thousands of Americans had some role in it, knowingly or unknowingly. It was essentially a bloodless coup where they took over the presidency of the United States without a single shot being fired.
Who's they in that sentence?
I don't know who all that they are. I would really like to.
So she has proof, by the way, she says all the time, as to the things that she's claiming, but she doesn't know who the bad guy is. That's just interesting to me.
I know the answer to that, but it's a significant number of they, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and they planned it for at least 3 years. This was no accident.
Do you ever hear yourself and think that it sounds ridiculous?
No, I know myself very well. I've been in me a long time.
Okay. Every part of that is amusing to me, where someone would actually ask someone else, do you think the things you're saying sound crazy? And then the other person's response is, I've been in me I've been me and nobody else for a long time, and I know I'm not nuts. I know I'm not crazy. And again, you can put aside your own feelings, whatever side of the aisle you're on, as far as the conversation of election fraud goes. That's a funny exchange between people. Do you ever think the things you're saying are crazy? No, I'm me, and you need to just be quiet now. In other news, shifting gears, a truck hauling a massive wind turbine with a blade got hit by a train. This is a true story. A trucker in Texas. Everybody's fine. All reports seem to indicate that nobody got injured somehow. But there was somebody, of course, because in everything that happens now in the world, someone nearby has a camera and a phone, someone who recorded this, and they reacted as they watched a train hit a truck carrying a wind turbine blade. That's a trifecta of things that are ridiculous.
Oh, the train just came down on the blade. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
That's the social media reporting on the incident. As I said, all reports as I've seen is that everybody's okay somehow. But that's what happens. You're driving around something that's occurring, and you don't call 911. You don't try to help people out. You whip out your telephone, you shoot a video, and you get a reaction vid up on your social media place of choice as soon as possible. And then maybe you check on the driver. I assume at some point in our current society, you're eventually like, all right, my Twitter followers have been satiated for a few more minutes. I've gotten the content out to everybody. Now let's see if the human beings involved in the moment I just witnessed are actually all okay. I hope they're all okay. But more important to me is I'm getting a bunch of likes and reactions. I'm not truly saying that's the intention there, but it does seem like most of us now, well, no, I shouldn't say that. A certain set of people now would react to tape something first and then maybe even share it publicly as opposed to call someone for help. That's just something I feel. Let's do a feel-good story because now all of a sudden I need one. A mattress store from Houston is sending 30 trucks of relief supplies to the regions hit by Hurricane Ida. Mattress Mac owner Jim talked about how he's decided to help out. And I love stories like this. I love stories where people actually do respond to a situation by doing something to help the people involved.
Seeing people want to help people, that's what life is all about. Just incredible devastation. And as always, Houstonians and Texans are rallying to help our fellow citizens. We're going to load up hundreds of truckloads of supplies, take them to New Orleans. We're doing this because it's the right thing to do.
We're going to load up hundreds of truckloads of supplies, and we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. I need to hear Mattress Mac owner Jim again.
Seeing people want to help people, that's what life is all about. Just incredible devastation. And as always, Houstonians and Texans are rallying to help our fellow citizens. We're going to load up hundreds of truckloads of supplies, take them to New Orleans. We're doing this because it's the right thing to do.
They were doing it because it's the right thing to do. I think more people just need to follow that approach, that mindset, that conversation in life. We're just going to put supplies on a truck and we're going to send them out there. And we hope to make a dent. We hope to do a little bit of good. And what we're not going to do is shoot a social media video where we talk about it ad nauseum about us. We're not gonna go for that road. We're gonna go for the road to actually helping people. You know, a road that's far more valuable for so many of us. One other quick story, and I don't know how much time we'll actually even have to talk about it, but Axios.com is reporting on a hybrid dating, a new form of dating that's called hybrid dating. I'll get to the rest of that story, but that's coming up in just a bit. What is hybrid dating, and why does Axios care about it?
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be here. Of course, if you've been watching any kind of news in the last few days or weeks. You've seen the ongoing conversation about the end of the war in Afghanistan. You even probably saw that viral video of the Afghan news reporter telling the people that everything's fine. Well, there were armed Taliban military members behind him just looking into the camera, which was the strangest piece of video or audio or just a viral moment that I've seen in a long time. Those guys had nothing to add to the report. They had nothing they wanted to say. They were just standing back there. Some of them kind of looked like they were deer in headlight too, moment-wise, like, oh, I'm on camera now. But others, I think, of course, I think they were all very intent on being there to demonstrate the power, the strength, whatever the crap is they think they are now as far as that place goes. And that leads me to a comment made by our former president, by President Trump, former President Trump recently, just yesterday, I believe, about what he would have done. There's been so much conversation about how Biden screwed up and how Trump was doing the same thing. You know, everybody said that he had the agreement, which is true, of course, with the Taliban, and that if he had been in charge, if he had been in office, we wouldn't have seen anything different. I've actually agreed with some takes I've seen out there in some conservative media. I think Brian Kilmeade is one of the first people that I heard say this, that Trump's ego and Trump's belief in the superiority of our military, which is accurate, by the way, certainly when compared to the Taliban, would not have allowed this to play out the way that it has. Regardless of any kind of agreement that might have been made going in, as the moments on the ground turned a certain direction, our past president would have done something different. And here it is, case in point, the statement that he put out. He said, never in history has a withdrawal from war been handled so poorly or incompetently as the Biden administration's withdrawal from Afghanistan. That is just the first part of the statement. In addition to the obvious, all equipment should be demanded to be immediately returned to the United States, and that includes every penny of the $85 billion in cost. That is what our former president would demand. And if that demand were not agreed to, if that did not happen, if it is not handed back, he said, we should either go in there with unequivocal military force and get it, or at least bomb, and I quote him, the hell out of it. Nobody ever thought such stupidity as this feeble-brained withdrawal was possible, exclamation point. I feel like that is accurately just the one thing you can say about Trump, whether he tweets something or says something. Well, he's not allowed to tweet anymore, but however he puts the information out there is he usually backs up the things that he believes that strongly. He would actually very much, I believe, do that. And there is a ton of argument, a ton of conversation as to whether or not we should go back in, whether or not it does make sense at some point, as we're apparently just leaving people there now. I can turn back to the audio from the Secretary of the State, Antony Blinken, from just the other day, saying that, yeah, there's people there, and actually almost crazily saying that he thinks that there's ways to still get them out with the help of our enemy of the last 20 years, the Taliban.
We made extraordinary efforts to give Americans every opportunity to depart the country, in many cases talking and sometimes walking them into the airport. Of those who self-identified as Americans in Afghanistan who are considering leaving the country, we've thus far received confirmation that about 6,000 have been evacuated or otherwise departed. This number will likely continue to grow as our outreach and arrivals continue. We believe there are still a small number of Americans, under 200 and likely closer to 100, who remain in Afghanistan and want to leave.
By the way, just the way in which he's robotically saying this, and if you saw the video from the other day, it also does look like he has the Taliban standing somewhere behind him. It felt like a hostage video. It felt like, as it's being described, someone that didn't want to do what they're being asked to do because the president chose not to speak the whole first day. The whole first day of this, for some reason, the written statement made more sense than the actual public statements that are made the day after. It just makes no sense to me that the president wouldn't seize on those moments more quickly, but I guess that's no surprise at this point. But Blinken did continue when he was talking yesterday about this.
Many are dual citizen Americans with deep roots and extended families in Afghanistan who have resided there for many years. For many, it's a painful choice. Our commitment to them and to all Americans in Afghanistan and everywhere in the world continues. The protection and welfare of Americans abroad remains the State Department's most vital and enduring mission.
Well, you can tell it remains their most vital and important mission because, of course, they're doing nothing. They're leaving, and now they're asking for permission from, as I said, the enemy.
We will hold the Taliban to its pledge to let people freely depart Afghanistan. The Taliban is committed to let anyone with proper documents leave the country in a safe and orderly manner. They said this privately and publicly many times.
Oh, good. The Taliban has said it privately and publicly, so we're fine then. Then that's all we need. We just need them to say those things, and everything will be fine. All the Americans who are worried can just pump the brakes. Everything will be okay. That it's crazy to hear that continued narrative too, that we trust them, and that has been absolutely the narrative and the conversation that's emerged from this administration. All right, I'm going to move on. Child obesity has increased during COVID-19. This is according to a new study. The study was published just last week. Youths gained more weight during COVID than before it. The change actually is somewhat significant, especially in 5 to 11-year-olds, which saw body mass index increase by 1.57%, and the prevalence of obesity increase by 36.2 to 45.7%. It's not just adults, I guess, that we've talked about a little bit, who during the pandemic, during the quarantine, during all the most difficult, maybe emotional parts of this, wound up getting, more out of shape, wound up becoming less healthy in a lot of ways. I think that it's not just a weight conversation. I think there's a lot of different conversations you can have about this. And I think this is another demonstration of what we apparently still have not learned with some of the ways we're handling things even now, is that there's repercussions for the decisions that we make, that there's impacts that happen in people's individual lives for their own mental and physical health based on what you put back in play, what you institute. And as some states are trying to navigate around the things that are these mask mandates or whatnot, and they're doing it by reinstituting parts of the problematic version of life, to say it the most simplistically, that we had just a little while ago. What we're doing then is essentially coming closer and closer to bringing this back. And I believe it's for one reason. I've said it before. I tinfoil hat every time I say it, but I can't help continuing to say it because it just makes sense to me. It's for individuals to interact with each other that have different beliefs in a fairly, not so kind way, to see those numbers spike. I am tremendously curious looking forward now. Any place that has instituted things like a mask mandate now, any place that has instituted things as crazy as what's going on in New York, if we actually see a significant rise in the amount of people getting vaccinated for those that are holding out because they feel like they have no choice. There does become a certain point where if enough people, especially the vaccinated and the mask-wearing people, get mad at the people in their life that they know who aren't following this and just everything else going on, that maybe what you inevitably get is a no other outcome kind of version of life where people have to go that road. And I think that that's the reason for the mandates and for everything else going on. I don't think it's because the science is saying that people who are vaccinated are at any kind of risk. I know it's not that. So what else could it be? Although now I know I'm a conspiracy theorist just like everybody else out there. Shifting gears again, I mentioned this just a little while ago. Hybrid dating is becoming a new thing. This is post-COVID, post the quarantine, and all the things we did in other areas of our life. And this is according to Axios.com. And I think they actually got information from Tinder and a few other dating websites. Hybrid dating is when you do part of it online. You don't date the whole time in person. You actually have first dates commonly and maybe some other dates along the way completely via video. And I don't know what that means, actually. I don't know if you just video chat and that's not really a date, or if you actually go about the rigmarole of a whole date. You put on the suit jacket and the nice tie, and then I assume since you're doing a Zoom call, you have no pants on, you just got the boxers. I'm assuming that. I hope that's not what's occurring. And you do the date, and then at some point, if you decide things are going well, you meet in person. And I guess according to this study, a new normal in the world of dating might be to do both moving forward. It might mean that you don't stop the Zoom dates after you've met each other. You keep doing a little bit of each. I guess Hinge is another dating website that has seen this occur as well in a survey where they found almost half of the people who use these at least go on one virtual date, if not many. And again, I don't know what the planning is involved for that. If you're a single guy now and a single guy who just wanted it the way it used to be in the past, you bump into someone in public, You tell them you think they're attractive, I assume more smoothly than that, and then you eventually get their number and go out on an actual inhuman person date with them. That's not how you do it anymore. Now you need a good camera. You got to get a valuable HDMI camera or something, HD camera. You got to do the whole conversation. Maybe really spruce up the apartment and what's behind you. You know, get the knickknacks on the wall like they do for the sports shows or whatnot. Just have a bunch of the things that describe who you are as a person as items behind you. That would be fantastic, actually. As I'm making jokes about this, I'm starting to talk. I'm a happily married man, but talk myself into thinking this could work. You just have all the different things. You're like, yeah, I'm a fan of the Yankees. That's why that's back there. I'm a fan of that movie, so I put it back there. Just whatever I did. And then eventually, maybe you meet in person for like a coffee, and then you go back to online dating for a while. And by the way, a second ago, I did mention another term that's out there for young people who are dating a lot. It's a term that essentially means you're trying as hard as you can to have multiple casual relationships and no serious one. I can't think of an easier way to have a bunch of relationships that maybe don't know each other exist and you don't commit to any than just doing Zoom meeting dates. I can't think of I'm not sure that those are the kind of relationships that everybody's looking for, the Zoom-only relationship, but it would be an easy way to have multiple potential paramours. That's all I'm saying. This is a thing. This is a thing now. A lot of people have embraced it, and I don't assume it's going away. I'm just sad that our society is probably going to crumble at some point because there's not going to be any children. If you're just doing Zoom calls, there's never going to be any new babies. All right, that's it. I got to take a break. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I did a deep dive into a topic I shouldn't have done a deep dive in. Well, it's not that bad. I couldn't handle the news of the day anymore, as I imagine most of you can. And I got very interested in the idea that Burning Man is an event that's going on, but it's virtual. There's a virtual burn. It began back on Sunday, August 22nd. It's going to run until Tuesday, September 7th. And Burning Man this year is 100% in your living room in the strangest of ways. So the first thing they did, the team that created this virtual event, is they thought about you putting on an old headset. They thought about you diving as deep as you can into the world of fake things. You have an avatar. It's like playing Wii, only you do it with goggles on, and you kind of feel like you're there. For anyone that hasn't played any kind of virtual VR headset game of any kind, and they recreated every aspect of the experience of going to Burning Man as best they could. This includes getting stuck in traffic, which makes no sense to me. They also apparently created a world where money transactions don't matter. It's a utopia of sorts where you can go ahead and interact with anything you want in this virtual reality. So, of course, it's not a big deal that things don't cost anything. And you just live that experience. You also, of course, can hit the porta potty if you want to. You do get to experience, I guess, some of the performances and music and things that Burning Man are traditionally supposed to be. I don't know if that means you set up a tent in your living room and you kind of like live in it. I don't know what you do in that world. One of the articles about this described it as only the kind of experience you used to get from taking hard drugs, but now available to you in technology and purposefully. I don't know why anyone would attend this. I have to be completely honest. As I read through it, and you create this avatar, it can walk, it can fly, it can even teleport. So once you become a thing that's not real and you're interacting with other people at an event that's not real, you also have superpowers a la the Matrix for whatever reason. You're sort of falling a little to the right is what someone said that got to experience part of the flying aspects of it. The first virtual burn in 2020 was pulled together in a month and experienced several technical glitches. This year's apparently was planned much, much better. They've improved all the technology behind it. The director of the virtual experience has said that's her title. Colette Crispin is this person's name who's quoted in this article, and she is the director of virtual experiences for Burning Man Project, a nonprofit which organizes the event. That is a heck of a resume. If you turn that in anywhere in the upcoming days in the future, you're like, look at this. I was the virtual director. I was the director of virtual experiences, for an event that didn't need. It can't be the same anybody that loves this kind of thing, that goes this sort of thing, can't remotely feel like they're having the same experience. There's little avatars that are being shared. A lot of people are happy they're getting to try out the event at all, I guess, compared to nothing. But I'm just saying that this has got to be the kind of thing that probably you're not that into, I'm guessing, even if you've actually gone out and been a part of it. Anyway, I'll move on. In good news as far as our mental capabilities, not virtual Burning Man news, 2 key brain functions get better as you get older. Apparently, after age 50, 2 key brain functions may get quite a bit better. The new study has demonstrated that these sort of understandings or misconceptions that things go bad are just wrong. They're more involved with just remembering things the back way, the Golden Corral way, I guess is what it says in here. Researchers from Georgetown University Medical Center studied hundreds of people between 58 and 98 and found these 2 functions improved. They included attending to new information and focusing on what's important in a given situation. Those things contribute to critical aspects of cognitive things like memory, decision-making, self-control, and are even vital in navigation, math, language, and reading. The study looked at 3 brain networks overall, and only 1 declined as you got older. It was referred to as alerting, and it's characterized by a state of enhanced vigilance and preparedness in order to respond to incoming information. You're not as alert, I guess, as you get older. And I don't think that that's because of brain decline, to be honest. Anybody I know that's 50s or older that's not listening as much as maybe they used to as they were younger doesn't care. It's not that they're any less sharp. It's just that they've decided that some things don't matter and they're not going to listen by choice, in my opinion. But the other networks, the ones that, as I said, are involved in all that other stuff, navigation, math, language, reading, and just all the critical thinking aspects, those get better. So as we talk about the ways in which we age, and actually there's a second study. There's one out of Germany that found the same thing to be true. If you put off retirement, if you remain a member of the workforce, your odds of getting things like Alzheimer's or struggling with other mental decline plummets. Apparently for those that stayed working, and they actually did research that encompassed 20,000 Americans between the ages of 55 and 75, but it was a pretty significant hit. Those individuals suffered things like dementia and Alzheimer's at a much less, 60 to 70% less likely to suffer from things that are, obviously difficult mental decline disease if you just continue doing something. It was true across all genders, education levels, and job fields too. So it didn't matter if you were doing something terribly challenging or not. All right, I got to take a break. A lot more coming up. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I want to once again play audio from a couple Marine dads who spoke with Fox News last night and Sean Hannity, because I think it's tremendously moving that in the conversation that they talk about losing their sons, they talk about the heroes that they were, the sacrifices that they made, and their desire to defend this country, to be Americans who fight to serve and protect and do all those incredibly honorable things. But both fathers also, they had different responses to the offer to talk to our current president. But they both walked away with a lot of anger toward the individual that I would certainly blame as the reason why my son is no longer able to be here with me. I thought it was intriguing that both men were capable of even having a conversation this soon after that happened, and also talking to, a political and a television star about it, and having a valuable contribution as far as conversations about the current commander-in-chief. Here's the first of the two dads. His name is Mark Schmitz. He is the father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, who was one of those that died in that bombing attack.
Well, initially I wasn't going to meet with him, but then I felt I owed it to my son to at least have some words with him about how I felt. And it didn't go well. He talked a bit more about his own son than he did my son, and that didn't sit well with me.
That didn't sit well with him. I do have to say that as far as, just from the outside looking in and judging the current president and all the decisions he's made, and this might be stupid, I don't know what this take is exactly, but the one situation I thought he would rise to, since he is someone who experienced so profoundly this exact same loss, would be talking to people in that situation. Now, granted, I know those two men going in, those two dads, would want Joe, our president, Joe Biden, but the human being that is Joe Biden, to acknowledge fault, at least to them, to say how sorry and all this that he would be, and that is not, it sounds like, what occurred, and instead it was a sharing of grief in a way that was overly focused on the president and not on the person standing in front of him whose son just gave his life because of a decision that the president made. Let's move on to the other dad. His name is Darren Hoover. He is the father of Marine Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover. As I said, another individual who was a casualty, a victim of the bombing in Kabul.
We said absolutely not. We didn't want to deal with him. We didn't want him anywhere near us. We as a family decided that was the way it was going to be. In reference to the checking of his watch, that didn't happen just once. That happened on every single one that came out of that airplane. It happened on every single one of them. They would release the salute, and he looked down at his watch on every last one, all 13. He looked down at his watch. And as a father, seeing that and the disrespect and hearing from his former leaders, one of his master sergeants said that this was avoidable, that they left them over there, they had them over there and let them down.
Yeah. I just want to sit on that for a second because, in all honesty, if you were a father that chose not to talk to the president, you're like, I know that conversation isn't going to have any benefit to me, and right now you should be selfish about you. And then you talk to a military leader who's there, and you're also witnessing the president of the United States seem as though he's in a rush to get somewhere else, to do some other thing after he is the one who chose to do certain things that caused your son to not be with us anymore. And then you go ahead and watch him seem as though he's not even present in the moment when the body of your son is being brought back to the United States. That in and of itself, as he said, would be about as maddening as you can possibly get. But then if someone else tell you this didn't have to happen, that this was utterly avoidable, I can't help but feel for these families, feel for these parents. And even though I guess I shouldn't be surprised that the president of the United States missed the mark on another issue, this is one scenario, again, where a person who has experienced the same trauma, and I bet you the human being that is Joe Biden questioned the why the same way anyone else would question the why. So he understands the question of why he would lose his son. And so that question might be one that he should have been better at fielding with even the one father who was willing to speak to him. Moving on, other news, U.S. has added Canada to its do not travel advisory list amid COVID-19 concerns. This is true. The U.S. Department has raised its level of advisory alert for Canada to level 4, which is do not travel. This means that you can go very few places. There's not a lot of places where we have any sort of confidence. The department, along with the Center of Disease Control and Prevention on Monday, warned against travel to Switzerland as well, among other countries, because of rising cases of the novel coronavirus there too. So that's just a story that I guess I'm throwing out. I need to shake that out. I need to get rid of the news that was all that right there. Let's totally shift gears. Let's talk about something completely different and something that actually makes me happier than I thought it would. Although I do not have this product yet, I hope to get it soon. Twix has come out with a brand new seasoning. It is a Twix shaker. They will be available at Sam's Club and other places. Some other grocery stores around the country will start selling them in the next few months. This essentially makes most food taste like a Twix candy bar. You just put a bunch of Twix seasoning on it. It's mostly meant as a topper for things like ice cream and milkshakes. The claim by the company is that it tastes great on things like popcorn and even delicious in cocktails. A few people on social media are already suggesting that you put the Twix shaker on fruit, which makes me tremendously happy. That at some point, maybe if you're reading the news of the day, you're just feeling a certain way about things like a lot of us feel. You just pull out whatever it is, the healthy food item, the fruit, the apple, the banana, and you just put some candy sprinkling right on top of it and then go ahead and eat it that way. For some reason, that makes me a very, very happy person. So kudos to them, the Twix. I do enjoy Twix. I think Reese's is probably better as far as candies go in the candy hierarchy. And I'm going to get in trouble because I'm not allowing anybody else to argue with me on that. But Twix is a high-end candy product, and there's a lot of times where I wish I could have sprinkled some Twix in some things, and that I did not intend for that to sound as dirty as I think it just did. New Zealand's prime minister dealt with a weird Zoom interaction of his own. This is someone who I guess was on a call of great value, a call with a whole lot of people on it. He was doing an interview, and his son ran up behind him with a carrot. Now, this is a video, this is visual, so I'm going to do my best to describe it. The son is in on the joke. The son thinks the carrot is hilarious for a very specific reason. It's a reason I won't get into a lot of detail about, but the video is out there. A lot of people noticed why the son was so amused by the shape of the carrot, let me say it that way, and he did not care that his dad, a working human, the New Zealand minister, was involved in certain things. So he's just waving the carrot behind, smiling and laughing and unwilling to be out of the Zoom call. Several people reacted to this on social media, finding it tremendously funny. The clip has gained quite a few views, 56,000 views as of last count. And this is right when it first went viral. It demonstrates one of the many at-home gaffes that a lot of people dealt with in the world of Zoom calls. But it's just maybe what it is, and I do recommend watching this video, is the joy on the kid's face. It seems so pure, to be honest. It seems like something we don't have a lot of right now, just the simplest of things, the simplest of pleasures, and you look at it, you realize what it looks like to you, and you laugh, and you want to share it with Pop, and you don't really care what he's doing at that moment. You're just like, look at this. This is hilarious. It's just that joy, that happiness that I think warmed my heart while also laughing at the uniqueness of the situation. So I recommend it. I guess this is now a video recommendation segment on a radio show. Perfect. This is going to work out. I'm going to take a break, a lot more in a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
To be free. I am not a terrorist. I am not Antifa. I am not a sex slave that wears masks.
Don't be a cutie pie.
Probably sit around and cook some soups and eat bread and desserts and just get all fat and sassy.
You're running my life, man!
Yeah, you haven't seen anything yet.
You're listening to The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal talking mostly about boys and girls clubs, but talking a lot about community programs, schools and government agencies that are mobilizing to, quote-unquote, repair the damage kids suffered during the pandemic. This is when kids are obviously returning back to school or have already returned to school throughout a lot of the country. A lot of kids are being asked to wear things like masks in school, even if they're not being asked to do that outside of school. Which means that in some way, depending on the age of the kid, you're kind of subtly telling them that it's dangerous to go to school, and they have to handle that while also trying to learn. A couple of things mentioned in the article talk about a boys and girls club that already had a kindness director, a position that they created a little while ago to help kids improve their mood by practicing yoga, identifying things that they're happy about or grateful for. This was a kindness director. That same school out of Los Angeles, the 10 Boys and Girls Club, has now launched an 8-week course, their most ambitious yet, according to the Wall Street Journal, to help middle and high school kids deal with the challenges and build social connections at a time when you probably not only feel more disconnected than ever, but definitely more anxious, worried about what's going on in the world. One of the directors for that organization said, our kids have dealt with so much. They're courageous and are doing the best they possibly can for the little time they've been on this earth. And that is true, too. I do remember, I don't have any kids of my own, but I do remember early on in the pandemic, I was with a few family members, a niece that is just about 5. And we kept trying to tell that niece to put her mask on because it was required. We had to go places and wear the mask. And she kept not understanding it. And it wasn't mean. It wasn't like she was doing it the way a little kid does who just doesn't want to wear a thing. Like if you tell them you got to put on a certain type of outfit, maybe to go to mass or something. It wasn't that. It was like, what is dangerous about what we're doing? We're going to go out. I'm going to see friends. I'm going to be around my neighborhood. And you're telling me that I have to wear this mask. This is when we even were supposed to wear them outdoors in places where you interacted with people. And it was just so challenging to convince this little girl that it was safe to leave, but that you had to wear a mask the entire time you were out. Otherwise, it wasn't safe. And I just remember that so strongly whenever we talk about these topics and these types of experiences for children, and just look at all the different data coming out, as I said, as this article kind of demonstrates, from a myriad of community programs and school and government projects that say that, yeah, kids are even now more challenged mentally and maybe interpersonally than they have been in the past and been before the pandemic, and that this is a valuable conversation to continue to have. And it's one that it is, I think, very much missed, or at least ignored, as this conversation of what we do moving forward goes. All right, shifting gears, because I like this story a lot. Totally different news. New research has found that by adding to a price with the 99-cent trick, the old, it's not a full $1. I'm not going to make this a round number cost difference for you. I'm going to make it 1 penny less. Is backfiring now more, according to research from Ohio State University. They found that it's difficult to get buyers to cross a boundary of a round number. For example, they set up a coffee stand and sold a small coffee at a price of 95 cents with the option to upgrade to a larger cup for $1.20. Then they charged the smaller coffee at a flat $1 and the upgrade at $1.25. Only 29% of customers upgraded from 95 cents to $1.20. But when it was a flat $1 and $1.25, when you saw that the increase wasn't exactly as bad as just the imagery of seeing the 1 included, well, then it totally changed. 56% of people were like, oh, 25 cents isn't such a bad difference. Let's go ahead and do that. It's because of that barrier. It's because of that wall and our just assumption right now that I think we need to penny pinch as much as possible because everything costs $1 million. Everywhere you go, the price of everything is ridiculous, and so you've got to be as smart as possible. I think the same is true if you go to like a movie theater or anything, and this is my theory on all that stuff. When everything is overpriced, but the difference between a medium and a large isn't really that significant, is I always buy the largest product possible. I don't care if I'm alone. I don't care if I'm with just my wife or a couple other family members. If it's 30 or 40 cents to upgrade a couple more times to get to the largest item, but it's $7,000 for the small one, then I'm just going to go the upgrade. I'm going to pay the extra $2, whatever the price would be, to at least have the most of something possible. And I think it's that same kind of logic that gets into play. I think it's the same reason I'm bad at a bulk store where they're telling me that the prices are all lower because of the amount of items I'm getting. I'm always in. I'm like, this sale looks incredible compared to what it costs now. I go to the regular grocery store, and when I get to the checkout, I'm like, how did I spend this much money? I feel like I got nothing. But at least if you buy in bulk, you might feel a little bit better. Shifting gears again, just because I like this story a lot. This is apparently a deep dive into fancy houses and the way in which their kitchens are getting set up now. If you're a very wealthy person, apparently you're really changing the game in the world of the kitchen, so much so that everything is hidden. So right now, if you go into your kitchen and you can see your refrigerator without opening up a drawer that's not a drawer or a cabinet that's not a cabinet, well, then you're not that well off. If you go into your kitchen and it looks like you can do nothing, there's no trash can, there's no refrigerator, there's not even a stove, then you're doing pretty well, according to this study. Everything needs to be hidden. The panel-ready refrigerator, the facade of all of that is the latest, I guess, niche trend in the world of fancy homes. I've been in houses where they hide things. I don't hide a lot of my things in my house. Maybe that says exactly where I am on the spectrum. Although, I don't know. I would never want to do that. No matter how much money I had, I would never want to put my refrigerator inside a cabinet. I already can't find anything in my kitchen. My wife organizes everything. I feel like sometimes she changes it. I'm convinced, and she always says it's me, that I'm the moron, and I guess I could believe that. But I feel like she screws with me because she knows how useless I am in that world, and she moves all the spoons. I'm just convinced of that. If she ever put the refrigerator in a cabinet, well, I would just, it's over. It's over for me. But I just like this study and this information. Apparently very fancy homes are now at least doing this in the kitchen. Maybe other rooms to follow. I don't know. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I want to take a second and talk about the Rachel Nichols stuff. I know it's been a few days, about 5 days or so, since ESPN announced that they would no longer have her on any kind of NBA programming first, and that also her show, The Jump, was canceled. This is all in reaction to that leaked audio of Rachel Nichols having a private conversation with two other people. I think one was the agent for LeBron James, in which she wondered about Maria Taylor and why she was being given opportunities that used to go to Rachel, and also if that had to deal with, this is paraphrasing, I'm not trying to make Rachel look better, I'm just not going to get into all the specific things she said because it's been a little while, but Rachel also said within that, the context of that ESPN has had a terrible track record for all the things they've done as far as inclusivity goes, and that part's completely true. Whether or not the rest of the things Rachel said were right or wrong, her wondering as to whether or not ESPN needs to do a better job of putting their best foot forward as far as demonstrating ways in which they are more inclusive, that's just an accurate statement. Maria Taylor has obviously left ESPN now and gotten a job elsewhere. This is partly because she asked for a raise on par with some of the biggest celebrities at ESPN and was told no, and so she went somewhere where maybe they wrote her a check for more money. The reason I want to talk about all this, though, is Rachel Nichols. She has a contract that doesn't end until 2023, and she's going to get paid on it, which means that right now she has not been canceled by Twitter alone. She's essentially been canceled by her employer, but she's not going to be working. I can't see any desire in any place to put her on anything, at least from what I've seen, for the next 2 years. Does that punishment fit the crime, if there is one, to a lot of people? Because 2 years is a long time in the world of media for you to not be out and on anything and then to hope to rebuild that career and get that back. I get that there's a lot of anger on a lot of sides of that conversation. I get that people feel as though the things that Rachel Nichols said make her out to be a racist. I also get when people defend the things that she said that they're not indicative of her being a racist, but her maybe wondering aloud about something that had a racial component to it, and she happens to be a white person, and that's not really allowed in our society. I don't know her. I've never met Rachel Nichols. I've never had a private conversation with her. But even beyond the reality of who and what she is and what that moment says about her, that was a private conversation that was recorded when it shouldn't have been and then leaked, and that has cost this person her career. And if you go back and look at the actual words she said and the things she said, I don't think they're on par with some of the things that people say where you're like, all right, that person's a racist. All right, the NBA owner who said those things a few years ago, the way in which he said them to a girlfriend at the time, that guy's a racist. That was an easy, you saw the things. I know, again, it was a private conversation, but you're like, okay, This was more, in my opinion, professional jealousy rearing its head in a unique way, and somewhat connected to a reality, the reality being, again, that ESPN was struggling with their perception as far as, diversity at that workplace. They were are still struggling with that. Obviously, if they couldn't even find a way to agree on a final contract with Maria Taylor, that seems. But a lot of people are now pushing back, I've seen on social media and other places, as to the totality of this punishment for Rachel Nichols. And she apologized for that moment. She said that she wished nothing but success to Maria Taylor. And again, I'm not necessarily defending the thought process either way. I do think it's probably more common in workplaces, and not just connected to race, but connected to all kinds of things. I think anybody, especially in a field like media, who gets passed over on an opportunity that they feel that they're just as talented to do as anyone else, not again specific to any other one colleague, they might wonder reasons why. They might even think about what does the company get out of this? What are the benefits to the company of making a decision that's not me, but that is somebody else? All of those thoughts are human, I think. And I think the way they come out differently. I mean, the same is true, I think, of anybody from a minority, anybody, a black person or what have you, that sees themselves get, that lose a job to someone else and wonder aloud in a society that's much more willing to hear this version of an argument, but wonder aloud if race had something to do with it. That's okay. Those conversations are fine. But the white person doing it, whether she's right or wrong, is obviously not okay to anyone involved, and now will probably cost what is a valuable media person and someone who's done a lot of things in the world of media for quite some time, a lot of her gig. And I'm surprised at the end result of all of this. I was surprised at the story to begin with, not just the fact that the statements were made, but that all that stuff was leaked and out there in the world and being judged and reacted to. At the time, if you remember, Rachel Nichols, when she apologized, she worked on a show with two black guys, two famous athletes, and both of them said that they felt that she was not a racist, that's not the person she is, and that a lot more work was going to be done by the show or other people. But it also seems to me, just a hypothesis, that depending on who you are, you get one strike. Some people get just one strike, and if that strike goes wrong, you're done forever. And that's how our society is right now. And you know why I think that is? Actually, just real quick, kind of the last part of my brainstorm on the air with you here is that social media is created to put the best foot forward for most of us. Some people out there court controversy. Some people out there, trolls, are just jerks. And actually, a recent study said that a troll is not a troll because of the internet. They're just a troll all the time, and the internet gives them more opportunity to be a jerk other places. But it's such a idyllic version of our society in a way, social media, because we all put the best things we do up there. None of us put a private conversation where we look like anything bad, not a racist per se, but just anything. None of us put those conversations out there. None of us put any of the thoughts or feelings we have that are in any way at all questionable. I mean, maybe some do, but a large majority of social media users don't, and certainly young social media users don't. And so that creates this expectation, again, I guess, that the real world is social media, that it's just an extension of each other, and they're utterly different things. Social media is propaganda for the most part. Social media is, as I said, an idyllic creation of our existence, and real life's real life. And so I do think that our standards have changed so profoundly and so significantly because of that, and that Rachel Nichols is a professional that I don't think deserved the punishment she's getting. It just doesn't make sense to me, but maybe that's, my own white I don't know. I have no idea. Moving on, I saw this story. A criminal was running from cops, like physically running. This is in Canada. And he came up across a body of water. Now, here's the mistake from the criminal. I don't like to tell people how to do crime better, although I guess I kind of do. But I guess there was a pedal boat sitting there. Now, that takes two people, so you can't use that. There was a canoe sitting on the side. I almost feel like this is a video game where you're playing the role of the criminal and you get to the body of water and you get to look down and you see the items and you ignore all of them. And he just jumped in and started swimming. So the cops chasing him utilized the items around them. Two cops got on the pedal boat and started using that. Another cop got in the canoe. A fourth cop found a paddle boat of his own that he actually utilized to chase down the criminal, and then all of the cops got the criminal at the same time because the criminal started to drown. They wound up saving his life, and this took place. Two criminal idiots actually were running away, fleeing from police over the weekend in Canada. It's just fantastic to me, again, that it ended in that road. And you got to think, at the end of all of this, if you're the guy who committed the crime, you're like, man, I could have utilized any of those options myself. One other story, shifting gears again, and then we'll take a break. I saw this, the 6 benefits of trying something new. And I always do these Casey Kasem style, so I'm going to do them in reverse order. These are the 6 benefits you get of going ahead and deciding to pull the trigger and try something that you've never done before, maybe because someone is asking you to. It can help you find something you love. That is the number 6 benefit. 63% of people have ended up loving something that they had avoided for years after they tried it. It raises your self-esteem if you try something new. And I guess if you succeed, I've seen people try new things like, say, skiing or ice skating, not do well. And I did not walk away from that experience thinking that that their self-esteem was raised. But apparently 51% of people feel more confident, more comfortable after they've done something that they've never tried before. It gives you energy. 52% of people said that they feel energetic after trying something new. This was number 4 on this list, though. It can make you more creative. Number 3 on the list of things that if you try something new, it might help you even in other areas of your life. It boosts happiness is the number 2 reason that you should try something new. So if you're thinking out there, you're like, I don't know if this thing is for me, maybe, happiness is just going to explode. Maybe if you don't know about the Burning Man virtual experience and you want to try it out, throw on the headset and pretend to go to a festival without leaving your living room, maybe the happiness is boosted. I imagine if you're actually going to try out Burning Man for the first time, it's also going to be some of the things you consume, the legal and illegal things you might consume that would make you have a happy experience. Number 1, 78% of people said when you try something new, it can make you feel better just in general, just overall. 78% of people say it's true, whether you like the activity or not, whether it boosts your happiness, your confidence, anything. Just the fact that you did it, the accomplishment of being like, all right, there's something I'd never tried, and now I can say that I have, that makes you feel better overall, that makes you feel like you've had an accomplishment, no matter what it is. So for that reason alone, I think that I'm going to try out some new things, and I encourage you to as well, as long as they're legal things and not running from the cops like those guys did. A quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. South Korea's National Assembly approved legislation today that bans App Store operations such as Google and Apple from forcing developers to use their in-app payment system. They are the first country, I think, or at least the first in a little while, to do something like this. The tech giants have faced widespread criticism over their practice of requiring anybody that puts an app on their app store of also having to pay up because you got to pay Google and Apple. They actually call it a surcharge because they helped your app get discovered. They help their consumers find you, even though there's no other way to do it without doing some things that are called jailbreaking your phone. This is something that might start to occur in other places. It might be one of the bigger hits to some of these companies. It's actually pretty similar, in my opinion, my layman understanding, to the way that Amazon works. Sellers go on Amazon. They sell their products there. Amazon takes a cut. Google and Apple have created digital versions of that where you put your digital product there and they take a cut of the sales. It's not ideal for the sellers, that's for sure. But obviously it's working for the consumers, I guess, since there's only one place to find a lot of those things. In other news, I saw this story, and this is probably not as uplifting as it should be at the tail end of an hour, but the market record price action that we're seeing right now on the stock market is mimicking 1999, and it could spark a 10 to 20% correction long term. That is according to some of the experts. They are saying that you should be very aware of the fact that if and when it reverses, the consequences could be extremely severe. Some of the quotes include, talking about how it's impossible what's occurring right now. And if you told us that this is what was occurring right now about a year ago, a lot of experts would disagree, would think it, isn't, as I said, possible. It's a time when the inflation prices are at a 30-year high. The 10-year Treasury note yield is at 1.3%. Well, the S&P would be at this level a year ago. No one could think that this day and age would ever occur. And something is going to have to give. Actually, within this article, they point to the fact that the Federal Reserve policy, which is likely to change at some point, likely a reaction to the current situation we're in, the rise in the Delta variant, wreaking havoc on maybe the rebounding of our economy at a certain level. All of these things mean that record high prices are not ones that are truly expected to exist for quite some time. And again, the similarities to 1999 can't be understated. In other news, I saw this story, and I can't help but wonder what this would do to our society. A bunch of tech CEOs, a bunch of sci-fi-inspired Silicon Valley people want to create something they're calling the metaverse. And I don't know why I feel like all of a sudden I'm talking about a comic book movie or just a comic book in general, but this is a real thing. The metaverse would be a digital place, a virtual reality location where everything that is reality would exist. I feel like I was just talking about this a little while ago when I referenced Burning Man and how they have a digital experience now. But some people want this to be an all-time, just a thing, not social media per se, but a step above and beyond it, in which you interact digitally. You can buy things, you can go to places, you can do all kinds of stuff in this mega world, this metaverse place where a bunch of the businesses together would, I guess, sell content. I hope that we never, ever make this a thing. Facebook is one of the places that has talked about this before, I guess, and thinks that it could be a cool next step. Social media is already terrible. There's a lot of ways in which, and I rail against it, but I use it all the time. Facebook.com/Craig Collins Show. If you want to say hi to me there, or Chad Benson, of course, on Facebook, Twitter, all over the place on social media. But we all feel the same way, I think. I think every human being does, that social media has about as many or probably more negatives than positives. And the last thing I'd want to do is trick my brain even more into thinking it was a real place. But the metaverse, which actually comes from some video games and some other things, thinking that, it's already kind of occurring if you play some of those very high profile Fortnite-esque games. Why not just do it without it being a shooting video game? The answer is because our society as a whole would just completely crumble. We'd go right in the bucket, and we'd never get out of the bucket, and it would be... I'm not kidding about this, actually. I think I should be as serious as possible, and I have no idea. I saw this. It's actually on MSN today, so I don't know what the reality of this ever becoming a thing. I think it is also an article in the Washington Post. I found it on MSN.com. But we all have to say no. And I mean that actually way more seriously than I thought I would as I started even talking about this topic. But maybe that's my cause. Maybe I rally the troops to rise against the metaverse ever being a thing. Because honestly, like if you work in tech, if you work in any of those places and you see the damage that is being caused by the products that you've created, not the value, but the damage, how could you possibly think that making it better would be to do something even worse, to dive in deeper? It feels like the solution is the problem in this situation, to say the very least. And I don't know why I can't get over this topic. I just can't seem to, see myself ever or anyone ever. I don't know. And I do think that's true, too, because there's another study out there that says, and I referenced this earlier, too, but another study that talks about how your social media likes feel as valuable to you in some ways as, say, like water or food. And they're as valuable to your mental health as some of those things, if you're on them. I know there's a lot of people who probably don't dabble on those things as much as maybe the assumption is we all do. There are people who are free from the clutches of Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. But if you're somebody, or your kids or somebody that's on it a lot and they don't get a lot of interaction on something they put out there, that can feel as bad emotionally, however silly and ridiculous this sounds, to any other kind of hardship you'd face in your life. A hardship like finding food or getting a job, getting fired, all those things. They're just as bad. So that's my message of the day. Say no to the metaverse. Craig Collins on the Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.